So today we're joined by Stacey Dankert, a former Green Party Ontario candidate and policy coordinator, as well as the co-director of the Waterloo Region Environment Network. Thank you for joining us. When we say invest in change, what does this mean for you, and how does this differ from the current government's idea of investing in change?
I think for me, a lot of times people talk about how we want to move forward in terms of economics and how well people are doing financially or businesses are doing financially. And I think that that really misses the point in terms of how people might benefit from looking at things from more of a wellness perspective. That we cannot separate things like economics from climate change issues and working towards mitigating that, dealing with climate adaptation, as well as looking at people's health and well-being. All of those things are so intertwined that if you try to separate any one of them out, I think that you're going to end up failing a lot of the people within our society and our society therefore as a whole.
Mm-hmm. What is proportional representation, and how would this help change Canada's democracy?
Currently, Canada runs with a first-past-the-post system, which is only used in a couple of other countries in the world. Most other countries have some type of proportional system. Some are better than others. So a proportional system is one that takes into account the percentage of votes for a particular party and tries to balance that out with the amount of representation that a person then holds. For example, a proportional system wouldn't allow for a government to be elected by 37% of Canadians and receive the majority of seats. It would align better and you would get closer to 37% of the seats. In that way, you might also facilitate a lot better collaboration and cooperation across different parties, which means that you're bringing more perspectives to the table. And I think anytime you bring a broader range of perspectives to the table, you're going to end up with better policies and better ideas.
The 5 Green Party ridings in Waterloo have created a group called Waterloo Region Greens. What is this, and how is this different from other political parties?
Yeah, so most political parties are very isolated within their particular riding. A riding consists of approximately 100,000 people or so. And you have a candidate within each riding, you have a riding association, and those work very independently from one another. Within this region, we were looking around and seeing that we were duplicating a lot of each other's efforts, and that meant that we weren't able to connect with as many people in the community. And so what we decided to do sometime around 2012 was to start working towards a more collaborative approach. So there are 5 ridings, and there's federal and provincial riding associations within each of those. So there's actually 10 associations involved. And what we do is we get together and we talk about ideas, we share knowledge, we co-host events with one another. It means that if a particular riding doesn't have money to spend on an event, they can still invite people and have a very successful and fulsome experience without having that restriction.
Many people believe the Green Party is just interested in saving trees and legalizing marijuana. What are some of the ways the Green Party wants to invest in change for the future?
I think, so many years ago when I first came to the Green Party, I was very disenfranchised with the other parties because none of them connected with my particular value system. And a friend encouraged me to read the platform for the Green Party, and when I did, it really woke me up to the fact that the Green Party actually is not a one-issue party. It's not very, it's not focused in the way that people imagine that it is. I think media just ends up talking about those things because it's an easy connection to make. In reality, the Green Party, as I mentioned earlier, it talks about the issues of economy, of health, and of the environment as being these interconnected functions and modalities within our lives, and that we have to consider each of them within the perspective of the other. You cannot have a strong, healthy population without having a strong economy, without having a healthy environment. And so making sure to consider and align with all of those things means that we have a very consistent set of policies. Policies don't tend to conflict with one another, which I would argue isn't the case with many of the other parties. And it means that we really have this strong focus on on making transitions. For example, as we move on issues related to climate change and climate action, you need to consider all of the people that might be affected by that and incorporate that into your plan. And the plan that the Green Party of Canada has, for example, has all of that factored in and has been really conscious of the fact that you have to try to help everybody come along in a fair way.
Now, if the Greens had a majority in Parliament, what changes would you like to see?
Well, first and foremost, I would love to see a proportional system. I think that so many people are frustrated whenever I go canvassing during an election or in between. I hear from people how frustrated they are with our electoral system or with the choices that they have. And I think in large part that's because they don't feel like their vote counts. And often it doesn't. If you come second in the race with 26%, all of those 26% of votes get thrown in the garbage. And I think that that's not a very fair system. I think as well, obviously, we have this huge impending issue related to climate change, and we need to be making real changes now. And making them in a very sensitive way that is fair to the people within our society. And so those would be the primary things that I would think about. Having something like a universal basic income that goes in line with that issue of having a fair and just transition in your climate action. And I think that having something like a universal basic income is a way to really help all of the people that are really struggling in our society without it being overly bureaucratic and expensive process.
So what are some of the ways people can get involved if they're interested in environmental politics?
I think that there are so many ways. It could be as simple as going out to a climate strike or talking to your local MP or MPP. If we don't make our voices heard in various ways, then there's no way that they'll be able to continue to say that it doesn't matter to people, that people are only thinking about jobs and the economy. We need to tell them that jobs and the economy depend on having a healthy environment. It's really important to keep our eye on all of the documents that come from, say, the provincial government or the federal government, where they're asking for our opinions on particular changes that they might be making. I think that making sure that we have our voices heard in those ways is also really important. Being a candidate, it is not as hard or as scary as you might think. It is time consuming.
Interesting.
Yeah. And it is definitely a way to be heard, right? And I think that we don't get enough variety and diversity in the voices that are coming to the floor in terms of being candidates, and that would be an amazing change.
All right. Well, that was Stacey Dankert from the Waterloo Region Greens. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.